As I always start my services at the temple, it is a joy to be with all of you. I've been serving during the week in the counseling area, and one thing I noticed, especially this year, more and more, the devotees who come to us, such a deep yearning to want to draw closer to God, to want to practice the teachings more deeply, the sincerity, the yearning for God that all of you express inspires me to the utmost. And what a wonderful thing for all of us to belong to this divine fellowship of souls, souls who are seeking God under the guidance of our blessed Guru. So let us begin the class tonight by closing our eyes, putting our whole awareness, our entire being at the Christ Center, and feeling the presence of our Guru. Om. Amen. Many years ago, India was on the outbreak of a very great and terrible war. On one side were the evil Kurus, led by the Prince Duryodhana, and on the other side, the virtuous Pandava brothers. And before the war actually began, both sides were frantically trying to line up their allies, their supporters, and it was during that time that Duryodhana learned that Arjuna was on his way to the palace of Krishna to seek Krishna's support in the war. And Duryodhana immediately jumped into his chariot and sped off to Krishna's palace because both Arjuna and Duryodhana were blood relatives of Krishna, and both by the protocol of the time were entitled to receive his support. Duryodhana arrived first. Krishna was pretending to be asleep on his couch, and Duryodhana boldly seated himself by Krishna's head. Arjuna then came later, and he humbly stood in pranam gesture at the foot of Krishna. And then Krishna pretended to wake up, and Duryodhana lost no time. We know why we are here, and I arrived first. I am the senior. You must support me, Krishna. But Krishna said, I will fulfill my obligations, and I will support both of you in this conflict. To one, I will give the support of all my vast armies, and to the other, I will serve as a personal counselor, but I will not fight in this conflict. And then he gave Arjuna first choice because when he opened his eyes, it was Arjuna he first saw. And without hesitation, with greatest devotion, Arjuna said, I want you, Lord Krishna. You are my salvation. And Duryodhana was jubilant. He thought Arjuna was an absolute fool. He got the armies which he so much sought. But there is a saying in India, where Krishna is, there is victory. And this is very important to us, because when you think what Krishna symbolizes, now, at different times in the Bhagavad Gita, he represents different things. Our Guru explains in his Gita commentary, Krishna represents God or spirit, the soul, the intuition of the soul leading the lower self. But Krishna also represents the Guru, the God-enlightened Guru, leading the eager, receptive, devotional disciple Arjuna. And the battle of Kurukshetra, this is the inner battle between the soul and the ego. Both are vying for domination of the kingdom of our consciousness. And in this battle that rages within us, within the consciousness of the disciple every day, where is Krishna? During this conflict, he is right in the very chariot of his receptive disciple, Arjuna. Could not be closer. Could not be closer. Another story. It's about our own guru, Paramahansa Yogananda. Now, Master left his body, entered the great Samadhi, Mahasamadhi, on March 7th, 1952. I think we all know that. And Sri Dayamata was by his side that fateful night, and she has recounted how she so quickly came and was by that form. And the Master had taught them when he went into normal Samadhi, if they wanted to bring him back to chant Om in his right ear. And so, hoping against hope, she was chanting Om in his ear, and then she had an experience. An unseen presence entered her. She experienced this vastness, this incredible expansion of this divine consciousness. And she has said that from that day to this, there has been no break in the continuity of her perception of the ever-living presence of her guru. But you see, not everyone had that experience when Master left. For many of them, it was very difficult. And this is understandable. And so it was about a year after the Master's passing. A few of them, the devotees, were meditating with Rajarsi, Janakananda, in Encinitas. And at the end of the meditation, Rajarsi told them, Master came to me. He said, Master is aware of your sorrow, and he asked me to tell you this. I could appear to them now. I have the power to do so. But if I did, they would not change. They would then be content to remain as they now are. Rather, they must come to where I am. And putting these two stories together, they give us a very deep understanding of the Guru and of the relationship that we have with him as disciples. Krishna, the Guru, is in the very chariot of his disciple, Arjuna, during this terrible conflict between the lower self and the higher self. Could not be closer. And Master telling the devotees he could appear to them in flesh and blood, just as right now, here at this convocation, Master could appear right here in flesh and blood. But as he said then, if he did, it would not help us. No miracles, no phenomena. Rather, we must go to where he is. Guru is with us, invisibly guiding us, protecting us, blessing us. Right in the devotee's spiritual eye, right in the devotee's consciousness. But to fully realize that, to fully receive those great blessings, there is much work we have to do on our part. We have to work very hard in practicing the teachings, in meditating, using the tools that Guru has given us to bring us to God. We have to be very sincere, very determined, completely enthusiastic. And then we can go where the Guru is. Go where the Guru is means go to the Guru in vibration, attuning our consciousness with the Guru's divine consciousness. And through attunement with the Guru, receiving that greatest blessing, direct, personal, tangible experience of God. We often talk about attunement. And one illustration I'll use that may be helpful. If you walk into a room and there's one of those big old-fashioned radios, and it's playing the last movement of Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, and it's very joyous, very uplifting. That's one experience. And then another day, you walk into the room, and the radio is tuned to another station playing loud, gross music. That's a very different experience. The room is the same, The radio is the same. What has changed? The radio is tuned to something different, isn't it? That radio is our consciousness, you see. All creation is vibration. First, the fundamental Om, the primal vibratory building block of creation. And then the Om becomes differentiated into thousands, millions, infinite number of vibrations that make up this creation we live in. And creation is based on the law of duality. So there's good vibrations, beneficial vibrations, there's dark vibrations, harmful vibrations, vibrations of goodness, of compassion, of peace, of love, vibrations of greed, of jealousy, of anger, of hatred. Now, the Bhagavad Gita talks about the three gunas, the three attributes of nature. Tamasic actions are dark, evil actions that take us away from God, that obstruct the inflow of God's blessings. Rajasic is the pull of the busyness of the world, the restlessness, the tendency to be active all the time. Sattvic is goodness, our wisdom, our God. These are the three qualities. And so you might say a businessman, when he tries to exploit people, he's being a tamasic businessman. And when he spends all his time, engages his whole being in building up the business and expanding, then he's becoming a very rajasic businessman. And when he makes helping others his number one priority, when he spends some time each day in communion with God and asks God to help him and guide him in his business activities, and when he conducts his business in a fair and honest manner, then he's becoming a sattvic businessman. So, with attunement, thinking of this radio, tuning to the station, it's just an illustration, but it can be helpful because every action we take, every thought we think, propels our consciousness in some direction, isn't it? And this is why we cannot limit our spiritual lives to meditation only. Because if you spend an hour in very sincere meditation effort and you feel that wonderful peace, and then you go into the office and your secretary hasn't finished that memo and you start screaming at her, and then you run off to the meeting and you're plotting how to crush your competitors in business, you take 5 steps forward and you take 15 steps backward, you don't get very far that way. And that's why the spiritual path, it applies to our entire lives. Making time every day for meditation is very important, vital. But spirituality is more. It goes beyond meditation too. It's how we treat people. Seeking God is how we treat people, how we live our lives. Everything we do on the spiritual path counts, one way or the other. And as we continue, gradually, the distinction between meditation and that part of our lives where we're active, it should become less. So that whether we're in the chapel or in the office or driving in the car or with family, in all that we do, we're trying to see God, to feel God, to love God. In waking, eating, working, dreaming, sleeping, serving, meditating, chanting, divinely loving, my soul constantly hums unheard by any. God, God, God. Master's poem. God, God, God. A rechanneling, a turning of our thoughts, our actions, our feelings, our emotions, of all that we are in one direction, towards goodness, towards truth, Godward. Sometimes devotees have the notion, well, I need a guru in form. If only I had been here when Master was here. And this is human, because especially we came relatively close after Master was here. But the more I'm on this path, the more I realize that the great blessing, it's not being just in the physical presence of the Guru, it's being in the presence of the Guru spiritually. It's being in tune. Many saw Paramahansa Yogananda, our Guru, during his lifetime. Many did not know who he really is. I remember talking to one man on the telephone, and he said, "Oh yes, I attended some classes that Yogananda gave, and so I became all ears at that." And then he said, "And after a few months, I tried this teacher, and after a few months of that, I tried another teacher, and then to him, Master was just another teacher he totally missed." And yet how many of us here, all of us here, really know who Paramahansa Yogananda is because we practice his teachings. We are trying to attune our consciousness with him in meditation. We have that receptivity, that understanding. We don't usually talk about spiritual experiences, but I will say this. I once had, it was just a little experience, but it gave me a deeper understanding of the astral world. We think that the astral world, we're here and the astral world is somewhere else. In truth, the astral world is right where we are right now. The only separation is vibratory. It's a very thin vibratory veil that separates us from the astral world. And in the same way, we have no idea how close we are to Guru. He is omnipresent. The only separation is by vibration. When the Master said, "To those who think me near, I will be near," that's not just a nice statement. It's a cosmic principle. It's a cosmic principle. When we think of the Guru, when we meditate on the Guru and dwell on the Guru, when we ask the Guru for guidance, we're attuning the vibration of our consciousness, we're refining, purifying it so that it's tuned into the Guru's consciousness. So many have been inspired by our beloved Sri Dayamata. Many of us have seen her. We see now the wonderful films of her, hear her recorded talks, read her words in her books. And when you do, you feel that vibration of that tremendous love for God that stirs you, that deepens that craving, that yearning for you to draw closer to God. And what Dayamata is, it's not magic. It's not magic. As part of my duties as a monk of Self-Realization Fellowship, I've spent a lot of time going over many of her talks. And she's talked so much about her life with Master. Dayama's outstanding example, she is a disciple who did everything possible to 100% follow the Guru. 100% obedience, 100% loyalty, 100% devotion, willingness. And what we see is the natural result of a devotee, a disciple who has done everything within her power to follow a God-enlightened Guru. And the thing is, it's not that Dayamata is way up here and we're cringing little devotee worms way down below. She shows what is possible for each one of us if we meditate sincerely, if we love God sincerely, without giving up, if we seek with all our heart. I want to talk a little bit now about meditation. As we practice the techniques of pranayama, the science of yoga, life force control our Guru has given us, We are purifying our consciousness. Normally, our consciousness is too gross to receive God, too tuned to matter. The Master said, the urge to seek God is drowned in the urge to indulge in sense pleasures. When that sensory compulsion disappears, then the craving for God automatically appears. We turn off the sensory compulsion by meditation. And it's such a blessing to have these wonderful meditation techniques that turn off the senses, that eventually will destroy all wrong desires. When you realize what is drawing us back and back again to this limited material plane with all the struggles and tests, because you think about it, before we incarnated here in the physical world, we were there in the astral world. And it's a beautiful world. We were having the time of our life. It's a land of beauty and joy and light, much more attuned to the presence of God. But then what happened? Those unfulfilled material desires started vibrating, and that thought came to us: pizza. Oh, if I could just have one more time, pizza. And before we knew it, like a roller coaster of light, we're being whisked off back to the physical world. And our friends on the astral world hear a voice trailing off in the distance. I didn't mean it. But unfortunately, we really did. And now we're in the womb, that little developing embryo in the womb, and the mother feels the baby kicking, and she thinks, oh, how wonderful. He's so eager to get out, he's kicking with joy. And that little baby is thinking, how could I be so stupid? And then comes birth. If you've ever been whitewater rafting, that's pretty mild compared to being born. Because all of a sudden you're being pushed and shoved and pulled, and you can't see, and you don't know what's going on. And then the doctor grabs you and slaps you. And you cry, and you take that first breath, and with that first breath, something happens. The senses start working. It's like being in a dark movie theater, and all of a sudden, full blast, it starts. The movie of the five senses, and you're totally dazzled, mesmerized, like a zombie. But this movie is 1,000 times more captivating than any movie you've ever seen in the theater, because you can not only see it and hear it, you can taste it, feel it, touch it. It's a very captivating show. And when that show of the senses is first turned on, that's the moment we totally slip into delusion and we forget who we are, this wonderful being of light and joy and bliss, the soul, perfect image of God. Our attention is pulled from spirit to matter. We think the movie is real, and we think this body is real with all the limitations it's subject to, the pain, the aches, and all those lovely things that we all eventually have to deal with in one form or another. Purpose of the Guru is to awaken us, to lead us to God, to turn off the show, and the means is through the science of Kriya Yoga, through the techniques that you reviewed during the different classes at this convocation. All the techniques, the Hang Sa, the energization exercises, the Om technique, Kriya Yoga proper, they all work together to take us to God. And the primary means, the techniques turn off the movie. They turn off the movie. Normally, the life force is going down the spine into the five senses. As long as the divine electricity of the soul is flowing in the senses, the show is on. But when we meditate, not just a few weeks, not a few months, not even a few years, but when we meditate persistently, sincerely, enthusiastically, with all the yearning of our hearts, gradually, through the blessings of the Guru and our own sincere efforts, we learn to gradually pull the life force away from the senses into and up the spine to the higher chakras, the centers of spiritual perception. And it's a wonderful world as we learn to relax from the senses and calm our bodies and minds and go within. And the very first sign that you're entering this wonderful world of spirit, it's peace. You feel this soothing, comforting peace that is unlike anything you have ever experienced in the world. And when you experience that peace deeply, you just want to absorb your entire being in that peace and forget time. The peace of God that passeth all understanding. And as we continue, that peace eventually deepens into love and joy and all the different aspects of God, wisdom, bliss, and so on. Master said, I have never known any pleasure of the world as great as the spiritual joy of Kriya Yoga. I would not give it up for all the comforts of the West or all the gold in the world. Through Kriya Yoga, I have found it possible to carry my happiness always with me. And he also said this, practice your techniques. It is through practice of your techniques that I can help you. When I started on the path, I was very restless. I know I'm unique in this. But I was very restless. I would try to practice the techniques, and I'd do my best, but it was very hard to sit still for me in the beginning. Very hard to control the mind, but it was very beautiful too. I practiced with devotion, you see, with love for God. And at the end of meditation, even though it was a struggle, at the end I would look at the photograph of the Guru I kept on my altar, and I would feel so blessed, and I would feel so loved. And I knew it was a blessing from my effort, you see, from my sincerity. And years later on the path, even now, sometimes, it's not you spend 25 years on the path and then you're in a state of perpetual bliss. It'd be nice. But sometimes there's challenges with the body and so on, or sometimes you go through a dry spell, even after years on the path, and the mind, for a time, is rather rebellious when you want to go deep within. But what I find is if you make the effort anyway, you do your best, you throw yourself into your meditation anyway, there's this divine law, you see, and I finally figured it out after some years. If you make a sincere effort in meditation, regardless of how restless, regardless of what's going on with the body, every meditation is deep. In this sense, it may be work during the meditation, but there is a blessing there. Spiritually, you become stronger. Spiritually, you become more in tune with Guru. Spiritually, you know God loves you. I remember once in my beginning years, I had a very tough meditation once. And I was very discouraged, but I thought, well, doesn't matter, I go on. And then later in the day, I'm pushing a wheelbarrow of sand, and all of a sudden, such joy came, I could barely walk in a straight line. And I knew that joy was from my earlier effort in meditation. What is attunement? Attunement is knowing that the Guru is pleased with you, not by reason, but by intuition. You know because you know through intuition. It's an experience. It's a blissful experience. So we should never give up. Continuity in meditation brings this attunement. It brings spiritual power in our lives. It makes us spiritually stronger. Also, we can consciously bring the Guru into meditation. At the beginning, you can visualize the Guru. Ask him to bless you and help you. Sometimes what I do, I'll visualize the Master touching me at the spiritual eye, blessing me, or with his hands on my head, blessing me. Here's Master's words. Deeply meditating disciples should concentrate on their Guru, or meditate with him if possible. Those who are spiritually advanced do in fact meditate with the Guru by visualizing him in the spiritual eye and tuning in with him, whether or not they are in his physical presence. During meditation, the spiritual vibration of a great master silently works on lesser yogis who may be meditating with him or who are in tune with him regardless of distance. It is sufficient for a disciple to think strongly of his Guru before meditation. He will then find his meditation on God to be reinforced by the Lord's power flowing through the direct, tangible channel of the Guru. So when we meditate, we pray, we practice the techniques. After the techniques, we enjoy the stillness of communion, where you're not thinking, you're not praying. It's a calm, devotional waiting. With the techniques, you do the work, then you wait for God to respond to you in the stillness. And after the stillness, that's the time you can talk to God, pray to God in the language of your heart. Or you can talk to the Guru, and there's no formality with this. It's not a script. You let it flow. You let it flow from within. I know one devotee. She told me when she was a young girl, she had a dream. A saint came to her in a dream, and he told her, whenever you're troubled, whenever you need guidance, you pray to me, and I will help you. And so she always remembered this dream, and throughout growing up, whenever she was troubled, whenever she was going through some test, she would pray to that saint. And she called him grandfather, which for a young girl is understandable. And later as an adult, she learned about self-realization fellowship, and she read Autobiography of a Yogi. And it was then that she learned her grandfather is Lahiri Mahashai. And to this day, she cannot call Lahiri Mahashai anything but grandfather. No formality. No formality. We relate to Guru, our nearest, our dearest, our best, most loving friend, which is the truth. And it doesn't mean we always have to think of Guru when we meditate. When it's Christmas time, often I just think of Christ. Often in my meditations, I think of the Divine Mother. But it's very interesting, because after I've had a meditation and I could be praying to Divine Mother, and then I open my eyes and I look at the photograph of the Guru, and I feel such blessings, and I feel so loved. To draw close to God is to draw close to Guru. And to draw close to Guru is to draw close to God. They are one. Now, another aspect. Master once gave a talk, How to Cultivate Divine Love. And in this talk, he describes how this cosmic force of love that is throughout all creation, how it takes different expressions as it flows into and through different forms. As that cosmic love flows into and through the Father, it expresses as reason-based protecting love. And as it flows into and through the Mother, it expresses as tenderness, compassion, forgiving love. That's very beautiful. But when that love flows from guru to disciple, then it becomes supreme. A friend of Self-Realization Fellowship, an Indian statesman, Dr. Singh, years ago he sent us some words he translated from the Upanishads. And this is what he wrote about the guru-disciple relationship. The word used in the Upanishads by the teachers when they address their disciples is samya, which has been variously translated as beloved friend, dear one, fair son, and so on. It is a term of great tenderness and endearment. It signifies a teaching that is not some grim command issued by an aloof divinity to a cringing disciple far below. It is a loving gift, an affectionate transmission of wisdom from one human being to another, for whom he feels infinite love, compassion, and tenderness. On the spiritual path, we have much work to do. All the techniques to practice, studying the teachings, the self-discipline, all these different things. And we can struggle and work hard for many months, sometimes years, with lots of tests at times. My personal conviction is without devotion and without a very loving relationship with the Guru as this channel of God through which God is helping us, it is too difficult. It is too hard. But with that personal relationship, no matter what struggles you go through, no matter how hard things may get, even then you feel anchored, you feel protected, and you feel so much loved, so much blessed. And to feel loved by the Guru is to know that you are loved by God, because they are one. There's little ways we can bring out that loving relationship. For example, sometimes when devotees come and they're having a hard time, I'll tell them, just at the beginning of your meditation, visualize the Guru blessing you. Visualize the Guru before you blessing you. One famous relationship between Guru and disciple is the famous Tibetan yogi Milarepa and his Guru Marpa. And it's famous, the terrible discipline that Milarepa received from his Guru. When he came to his Guru, he didn't have anything material, and it was the custom at that time, if you wanted initiation, you had to give your Guru a gift. So his Guru told him, well, you work for me. That will be your gift. So first his Guru asked him to build a big round tower on the mountain. Now this tower was just made of these big stones, and they didn't have bulldozers in those days. And so backbreaking work. He built this round tower, and when he was about half finished, his Guru told him, well, I hadn't considered the matter fully. Tear it down and return everything to where you got it. And when he did that, then his Guru had him build a semicircular tower. And when he got half done, the Guru told him, I must have been out of my mind. Tear it down. And he had to return everything. And then a triangular tower, and on and on and on it went. His Guru plunged him into despair again and again, not giving him initiation. Terrible, terrible discipline. But when the time was right, his Guru explained. Milarepa had, in his younger years, done a lot of bad things, had hurt a lot of people by wicked deeds, and so his Guru explained, I had to do this to purify you so that now you are ready. And then with his Guru's blessing, he received the techniques of meditation, and in a very short time he attained full enlightenment with the Guru's blessing. But for me, the most beautiful part is when he was on retreat in meditation, he had a dream. And his Guru told him, this dream signifies that you will now leave and we will not see each other again in this lifetime. And so his Guru gave him a scroll with instructions and told him that you will know when the time is right to open this, And many years later, he was having a test, and he knew intuitionally that the time was right. So he opened the scroll, and it told him exactly what he needed to do. A wonderful demonstration of the power of the Guru's teachings. But for me, the most beautiful part of this whole thing between Milarepa and his Guru Marpa is at the end, the day of parting. They were together, and Marpa put his hands on Milarepa's head and sang this song invoking God's blessings on his disciple. And then Milarepa started to walk to leave his guru, and he couldn't bear turning his back on his guru, and so that he could see the guru till the very end, he walked backwards until the guru's form was no longer visible. Complete devotion, complete trust, this loving, God-ordained, beautiful relationship between one who is seeking God and one who has found God. This is the relationship that Master had with Sri Dayamata, with Rajarsi Janakananda, and this same relationship we can have with our Guru Paramahansa Yogananda if we choose to do so. And that relationship, often it comes out in the most unexpected ways. If we're faithful, sometimes when you least expect it. I was on retreat last year, and I was looking out my window, and I was seeing this little rabbit feeding, and it was a real sweet sight, and I just had the thought, oh, I wish Master were here. And I felt his presence so strong, I didn't dare turn my head. And so I just watched that little rabbit, feeling the Guru through me, watching that little rabbit. And it was a wonderful experience. How do we know this is not imagination? It remains vivid. When we have an experience like this and it does not fade, it remains vivid. That blessing, we can recall it like yesterday, no matter how long time passes. And through that experience, somehow we know we are permanently blessed. That's how you tell. That's how you tell. Now I want to talk about studying the Guru's teachings. Master said, when I am gone, the teachings will be the Guru, meaning Guru works through the teachings. When we deeply study and try to absorb that in our consciousness, we create a very powerful vibrational link with the Guru's consciousness. And we need this so much because, you know, that world out there, it's pretty crazy. And devotees, they often come to us and they're troubled by wars going on here and there, or the environment, or the global warming, all kinds of things. And the basic question, how do you cope? How do you cope? How do you, in today's world, with all that's going on, keep your mind on God and spiritually progress? Because you have to be in the world to support your families, and you have to earn a living. So how do you draw closer to God in a world that sometimes is filled with craziness? You cope by charging your consciousness with God. You charge your consciousness with God in meditation, but also spiritual study. It works just like an iPod, where you play your iPod for a while and then it starts to run down, and then you stick the charger in the wall and you charge it, and it's good for many hours. When you study the Guru's teachings sincerely and really try to deeply absorb, you are charging your consciousness with the Guru's vibration, and that charge lasts for many hours. So even if you study 20 minutes a day, 15 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, that will sustain you throughout the entire day. It creates a spiritual charge that protects you, that uplifts you. The newspapers, the TVs, they're constantly bombarding you with all these messages, sensationalism, violence, all these different things. You need to counterbalance that, don't you? And when you go to work, it's just problems, constant problems. It's not like after convocation you return to work and your boss isn't going to call you up and say, I just want to make sure you're thinking of God. He's going to call you up, problems. So we need to regularly, deeply turn to the teachings of the Guru, because they remind us of what we are, something wonderful, blissful image of God, the joy, ever new, ever existing, ever conscious joy, bliss of God. That's what we really are. Master used to say, one moon gives more light than all the stars. Meaning, one mooned soul who knows God can counterbalance millions of negative influences out there. Our Guru knows God. If we turn to Guru, if we charge our consciousness with our Guru's vibration, we can overcome any struggle out there, any problem, any test. Let me give an example. A few months ago, I learned something very negative about a close friend of my family. And it was something I had never known before, and at first I was in shock. I had never known this about this individual. I was just rather stunned. And suddenly, as I started to have a few judgmental thoughts, some words of the Master came to me. The vanished lives of all men are dark with many shames. Human conduct is ever unreliable until anchored in the divine. And as soon as that came to me, the judgment fled. And I just felt understanding, love, non-judgment. When you study the Guru's teachings, you make them part of your consciousness, and they will come to you when you are in need. Gyanamata writes about this. All my life, she writes, I have fed my soul with the sayings of the saviors that God has sent to the world. Now in my time of need, I do not have to depend upon a book. If I keep very still and listen, something comes to the surface of my mind that calms and strengthens me. Many of us have heard Master's statement that on the spiritual path, 25% success is due to the devotee's effort, 25% is the Guru's blessing, and 50% is the grace of God. And of course, so much of the grace of God comes through the blessings of the Guru, so he plays quite a role in leading us to God and helping us to achieve that ultimate spiritual conquest. We may know this intellectually, but often we may not feel as deep a connection as we should. We think, I'm struggling here with all these tests, and Guru is way off here somewhere blessing me, but we don't make the connection in our daily lives, in our struggles. But I tell you an incident that happened many years ago. I had been hiking in the mountains, and a big storm had just blown through. And part of the trail, about maybe 50 feet of the trail, had been washed out partially. And ahead of me, just in front of me on the trail, was a father with his son, at most 9, 10 years old. And the father had gone ahead through the difficult part of the trail and was on the other side safely. And now the little boy was navigating, and the father was directing him. And he was telling him exactly where to place each hand and foot. And that little boy had such trust, such complete confidence in his father, and his father had confidence in him too. That little boy was doing something that was quite incredible for his age. And to me, it was just the most beautiful thing to see that absolute trust of that little boy in his father. Guru is one who found his own way to God, who escaped from delusion, but in his great love, in his great compassion, he has come back. He incarnated to show us each the way. And he is guiding us, blessing us every step of the way. We have to have trust. We have to, with complete confidence, follow the way of the Guru. Dayamata once said, "Guru is the channel that links us with divine wisdom. When we think deeply about what he has taught us and learn to talk to him and ask his guidance, understanding unfolds within us. The very thought that we are always in his divine presence helps us to make the right decision, to say the right thing, to respond in the right way." When I was a young monk, I was very shy, extremely shy. And then they told me they wanted me to play one of the major parts in our Halloween show, to be this. I was a monster, a dead undertaker. And I was so thrilled and happy to be in the show with my shyness, I was sick to my stomach. And then the rehearsal started, and I was so nervous and so tense and uptight, I could barely move. And I thought, I'm going to ruin the show. They have to take me out. They just have to take me out. That was my affirmation. But the weeks went by and they did not take me out, and I learned I was stuck. And so I started praying to the Master deeply, what can I do? And then I remembered, in the lessons, there's that lesson on stage fright. And if you've ever thought why Master covered such a strange subject in a set of lessons on spiritual subjects, do you know why he included that? He wrote it for me. Maybe you've had that feeling and realization too. So I studied it. I practically memorized it. And he said, rehearse and rehearse your part. So I did. I got in front of a mirror and I spent half my day rehearsing that part of being a monster. But I still remember that first, we went through the rehearsals. And I was still bad, but I kept trying, help me, Master, help me. And then one night, I felt different, and I couldn't explain it, I just felt different. And after I did my scene, all the other monks came running, congratulating me, because instantly I had turned from someone very awful to someone pretty good. And I still remember the night of the show when all the people came, waiting behind the set. My heart was pounding, very nervous, waiting for my cue, but visualizing the Guru at the spiritual eye, help me, Master, help me. And then going out and just with every fiber of my being, playing that little part to please God. To please God. That night was just a continuous spiritual experience for me. Sometimes we look for a spiritual experience and we think angels are going to come flying through the spiritual eye. It's the joy that comes in the heart, the nearness of feeling the Guru's presence, feeling the nearness of Divine Mother's presence, feeling that spiritual power in our lives. Those are the real spiritual experiences. Gyanamata once wrote to a devotee, ask the help of the Guru again and again. His company can save you. So at the beginning, I told the story about Krishna and Arjuna during the war of Kurukshetra. Where is Krishna? Right in his disciples' chariot. Where Krishna is, there is victory. And in the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna does not want to fight, symbolizing the stage the disciple goes through where you just can't give up your bad habits. They hurt you, but they're too near and dear. It's hard for you to visualize being without them. And then at a very important point in the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna tells Krishna this, with my inner nature overshadowed by weak sympathy and pity, with a mind in bewilderment about duty, I implore thee to advise me what is the best path for me to follow. I am thy disciple. Teach me. whose refuge is in thee. Arjuna, the disciple, is confused and bewildered. He turns to his guru for help. I am thy disciple. Teach me, whose refuge is in you. And it is at that point, the turning point, that the sacred transmission of teachings from Krishna, the guru, to Arjuna, the disciple, begins. And each one of us has come to that point, which is why we're here today, isn't it? And it is at that point that Krishna begins to impart to Arjuna the science of yoga, leading him point by point through the science of yoga, through the art of right living, through all the steps the disciple needs to take, until eventually Krishna gives Arjuna that ultimate experience, the cosmic vision of all visions, oneness with God. And at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, it's very sweet. Krishna asks Arjuna, Arjuna, hast thou listened to this wisdom with concentrated heart? Has thy delusion-born ignorance been annihilated? And Arjuna replies, my delusion is gone. I have regained memory of my soul through thy grace. I am firmly established. My dubiousness has vanished. I will act according to thy word. And as our Guru says in his commentary on the Bhagavad Gita, this journey of Arjuna is our journey. It is the journey of the soul retracing its steps back home under the guidance of a God-enlightened Guru. To close with Master's words, God has sent you to me, and I shall never fail you. Even when I am gone, my help will be always given to devotees all over the world if they keep in tune. I shall always be watching over each one of you. And whenever a true devotee thinks of me in the silent depths of his soul, he will know that I am near.